Hey, how you guys doing? I hope you're doing great. So, I wanted to talk about something different for a change, kind of a break from the whole superhero shtick. So, recently, the new film 28 Years Later has come out. Now, for those of you who don't know, it's actually the third entry in a series of films. They're kind of like zombie movies, although the filmmakers don't really like to call it zombie movies. You'll kind of understand why. So, in order to prepare for the third one, me, along with a group of friends of mine, we sat down and watched the other films. I will be talking about, of course, the first film, which is 28 Days Later. Now, apparently, from what I've read, the writer Alex Garland, he was heavily inspired by the Resident Evil games, and he essentially asked the question, what if zombies moved like the dogs in those games? Super fast, super just like they want to eat you and get you, just without a moment's hesitation, right? And then that's how we got 28 Days Later. And so, this film has been described as the sort of reinventation of the zombie genre. It changes the way that people look at zombies, right? And so I sat down and I watched it, and I'm not gonna front, I loved it. I really, really loved it, and I think there's lots of good reasons why this is such a masterpiece of horror filmmaking. Right now, the first thing that I want to get to is I love the acting. I think all the actors in the film do such a superb job. Okay, Cillian Murphy as Jim, probably one of the most likable protagonists I've ever seen in a horror movie. I have never wanted to root for a main protagonist in a horror film as much as this guy. Okay, he's down to earth, he's relatable, but also you feel such empathy for him. You feel such empathy for him, and the opening shots where he's waking up from the hospital in and he's wandering through the empty streets of London. It's haunting stuff, and it puts you right in his position of just what on earth just occurred here. It's so great. Okay, and especially towards the end of the film where he goes to certain places, right, mentally and physically wise, that you're just shocked. You're shocked at the transformation he undergoes. So yeah, I thought he was great. I thought Naomi Harris as Selena, I believe that's the character's name. I could be wrong, but Naomi Harris, she does a fantastic job. I loved her in the Pirates of the Caribbean films. That's where I mainly know her from. But here she was simply great. Okay, she was very strongly written. She has very good chemistry with Cillian Murphy, and they kind of developed this sort of like little romance going on between them. And I really dug her. I really thought she was phenomenal. You also have Hannah, who's like the little girl who's present throughout. She was also quite well done, and and especially her chemistry with her father, who's played by Mad Eye Moody from Harry Potter, Brendan Gleeson. They have such wonderful chemistry with each other that there's a scene that happens later on in the film that it makes you feel more sad for her, right? And it makes you feel more sad for the two of them. I'm not going to spoil it because I genuinely want you guys to see it for yourself. But yeah, it's really good. And of course, like I mentioned, Brendan Gleeson, he's a phenomenal actor. I've seen him in lots of stuff, and he is no different here. Okay, he has great chemistry with the rest of the group. He's a very likable, father figure, and he's a very likable, dad to his own daughter. And so, like I said, I'm not going to speak on too much about these characters because there are some stuff that happens in this film that I genuinely think like you should check them out for yourself. Now, I want to get to the main thing of why I wanted to make this video. This film easily has the scariest variation of zombies I have ever seen on film. Okay? These people do not screw around. All right? These people do not screw around. This is not like George Romero, Night of the Living Day, where it's like, this is not your typical brain dead zombie. Okay, like this is not the type of zombie epidemic that you could just easily outrun and yeah, sure, just get a few shotguns, maybe get some bats, you're totally fine, you're gonna survive. No, but these guys they have what's called a rage virus. Now the rage virus is it's very self-explanatory. Once you're infected with it, it drives you into a manic frenzy. It makes you want to tear apart everything in your path. Okay? And I'm telling you, these infected people, right? And that's what these movies call them, the infected, right? They don't call them zombies whatsoever. They are terrifying, okay? And what I absolutely love is how they also differ from the traditional zombie look in terms of design, right? Now, yeah, sure, they have a little bit of like blood on them and everything with like their face and their clothes, but the main difference is their eyes. All right, you can tell somebody's infected by their eyes, those haunting red eyes. It's such striking, vivid imagery that it's nightmare fuel. It's straight up nightmare fuel. It is so well done. Okay, and I'm telling you, if I was in this situation, if I was living in this universe, I would not survive. Truth be told, I would not survive. I'm serious, you know. So the way the infected are done in this movie is really good. And as far as I'm concerned, right? As far as I'm concerned, these are the scariest variations of zombies I have ever seen on film. Okay. Now, something else I also want to highlight is the characters, right? I've kind of mentioned this along with the acting as well, but the characters, what I like most about them is that they're the most realistic characters I've seen in a setting like this, right? They react the exact same way that we would react in a situation like this. They do certain things that we would look at and be like, well, maybe I don't agree with that, but I could see why they did that, right? Or maybe you look at some of the other decisions that they made, and you're like, oh, that makes so much sense. I would have done exactly that, right? That's the thing. It's written from such a view that it makes you just be like, wow, these are legit people. These are real human beings, right? Even though they're fictional characters, although they act just like how we would react. And so that I feel like is one of the best aspects of it. Now, what I also really like is the cinematography. Now, granted, this was filmed primarily on digital cameras. This was actually one of the first films to ever do so. And it very much shows, because at the time you can only film up to like 480p quality. So when you watch the film, trust me, it's not your TV setting. The film is just like that. However, I think it adds to the feel of the movie. I think it adds to the atmosphere of the film, because it puts you in a position where there's no computer effects involved, by the way. There's no computer effects involved. And so it fully immerses you into this world. It fully immerses you into this situation, right? And that is where I feel the film is so effective. And it kind of makes the film kind of have like sort of like a home diary vibe, right? Like essentially it's found footage without it being found footage, if that makes any sense. And I also want to talk about the music. Okay, listen, John Murphy, he's one of my goated composers, okay? After hearing more of his like music, which by the way, he's going to be doing the soundtrack for the new Superman. I cannot wait for that, okay? I genuinely cannot wait for that. So, once I found out he did the music for here, I was like, oh my gosh, and of course there's one particular music piece that, I'm sure you've heard throughout social media, maybe like other films and so on and so forth, that it's so iconic. It's so iconic, and for the best reasons too. It primarily occurs at the end of the film, and it makes for one of the best set pieces I've ever seen in any zombie film. Okay, maybe any horror movie, really. Like, there's just any horror movie. And so, yeah, John Murphy, dude, you are one goated individual. Okay, like keep on making the bangers. Okay, and I cannot wait to hear your Superman soundtrack. Now, that's really all I can say without giving any away spoilers. Now, one thing I will add that I don't exactly like from the film is one of the characters, I would say Hannah, right? I would say like the little girl. Primarily towards the end, she's her role is kind of reduced to like a damsel in distress sort of thing. Once again, I'm not going to say what happens, but once you watch the film, you'll perfectly understand what I mean. And so, yeah, that's really kind of it, and I don't think there's anything more that I could say about this film. Well, actually, there is one thing. And I do feel like it's one of the things that makes this movie stand out apart from the others, which is the themes that it tackles, right? Which is what I love is how even despite the midst of this like horrible situation, what these people do to survive is that they depend on each other. And that is what I absolutely love, is that us humans, we're all social creatures. We need contact with each other in order to survive, right? In order to maintain a sense of balance in our lives. And so that's why I think this film reinforces that even though this is like, there's infected everywhere, right? There's all these sorts of things that are going on, but yet the film constantly reminds us that there is hope for humanity, that maybe there is hope, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And that is something that I really like, something that I really appreciate from this film, is even so dreadful, right? And there's many scenes that scare the crap out of me. It really, really did scare the crap out of me. But yet there's other scenes where you're just like, you sit down and you take a break with these characters, right? And they sit down and they just talk about their lives, and they talk about what they used to do before this whole thing started, right? And it's just one of those things that gives this movie more of an edge over most zombie films, is that, ironically speaking, for a zombie film, it's one of the most human. So, so yeah, this movie is really, really good. I would highly recommend it. I would probably give it a solid 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10. I think it's one of the best horror movies I've ever seen, probably the scariest zombie movie I've ever seen. Now, if you have a scarier zombie movie, let me know down in the comments below. I would be happy to check it out. Now, as for the sequels, right, 28 weeks later and 28 years later, I would make separate videos on those, although I would have to get through, certain other movies first before I get to them. But yeah, I just wanted to make this video to sort of, do a little something different, right? Do a little something different aside from talking about superheroes. So yeah, thank you so much for watching this video, and tell me, what do you think about this movie? Let me know in the comments below, and I hope you like, subscribe, and if you have any requests about what kinds of videos you want me to make, let me know in the comments below. All right, I'll talk to you later. See you next time.